let me tell you something that might change the way you see everything. But first, let me ask you this. Have you ever tried to let someone go and still found yourself thinking about them months, maybe even years later? Not in a dramatic, heart-wrenching way, but in the quiet. When you're brushing your teeth, when you hear a certain melody, when you're staring at the ceiling, right before sleep takes you. You've told yourself it's over. You've tried to move on. You've even convinced everyone around you that you have. But deep inside, they linger. Why? You might say it's nostalgia. Maybe you're just sentimental. But what if it's something more? What if your mind isn't broken? What if it's doing exactly what it's supposed to, trying to get your attention? Carl Jung believed that persistent thoughts, especially the ones we can't seem to shake, are never random. They're signals, symbols, messengers from the unconscious, bringing something to the surface that we've ignored for far too long. And the person you can't stop thinking about, they may not be who you think they are. See, when someone lingers in your mind, especially after you've tried everything to move on, it's rarely about them. It's about what they represent. We often assume our thoughts are reacting to external reality, but the unconscious doesn't work like that. It speaks in symbols, in patterns, in echoes of forgotten experiences. The person you keep remembering might simply be a mirror, one that's reflecting something buried within you. Maybe they showed up in your life at a moment when you felt vulnerable. Maybe they said something that stirred a feeling you'd locked away. Or maybe they awakened a part of you that had been asleep for a long time. Carl Jung believed that the unconscious stores every wound, every joy, every unmet need, and that these things don't stay buried forever. They reemerge again and again, often through other people. So what if this person is more than just a memory? What if they're a symbol for something unresolved? Maybe it was a time in your life when you felt seen. Maybe they embodied a kind of love or a kind of pain that left a mark. And now, every time they flash through your mind, your psyche is saying, there's something here you haven't dealt with yet. You might be searching for closure. You might be hoping that enough time or distraction will finally make them disappear. But in truth, it's not the memory of them that haunts you. It's the part of yourself that was touched and left wide open. The question isn't, why can't I stop thinking about them? The real question is, what inside me is still trying to speak through their image? What if I told you that the person you can't stop thinking about might not even be the person you're actually thinking about? Sounds strange, right? But this is one of the deepest truths Jung uncovered. We don't just see others, we see ourselves in them. That overwhelming attachment, that ache, that emotional pull, it might not be about them at all. It might be about the parts of you that you've buried, denied, or forgotten, and projected outward. Projection happens when we take something hidden inside, an unmet need, a repressed desire, a wound, and assign it to someone else. We unconsciously say, they're the one who makes me feel this way. When in truth, they've simply activated something that was already there. You think you're longing for their presence. But what if you're actually longing for the part of yourself they remind you of? Think back. Have you ever met someone who captivated you instantly? Not just attracted you, but lit something up inside you? Maybe they radiated confidence, or freedom, or tenderness. Something you've craved, maybe without even realizing it. In those moments, your psyche isn't falling in love with them. It's falling in love with the part of you that you see reflected in them. And it works both ways. Some people don't bring out beauty, they trigger pain. They stir up insecurities, abandonment wounds, or memories you'd rather forget. But even that isn't really about them. It's about what they activated. You're not haunted by their presence. You're haunted by your own reflection in their presence. The longing, the obsession, the repeated thoughts, they're all part of the same message. Your mind is trying to reconnect you with something you've disowned. So the next time you catch yourself spiraling over someone, pause. Ask yourself, what do they represent? What part of me do they bring to the surface? And most importantly, what have I projected onto them that actually belongs to me? When you start answering those questions, the obsession begins to shift. The fog starts to lift. And suddenly, you're not chasing them anymore. You're beginning to reclaim yourself. Why is it that some people leave an unforgettable mark on us, while others, no matter how kind or present, fade into the background? Why do certain connections feel inevitable, like they were written in some invisible script long before you met? Carl Jung believed the answer lies deep in the psyche, in ancient, universal templates known as archetypes. These aren't just abstract ideas. They're psychological patterns embedded within all of us, and they shape the way we love, connect, and attach. The archetypes are like a hidden blueprint. They influence what we find attractive, what triggers us, what we long for. And without realizing it, we gravitate toward people who mirror these unconscious forms. One of the most powerful examples: the anima and the animus, the unconscious feminine side within a man, and the unconscious masculine side within a woman. When someone embodies the energy of your inner opposite, they don't just interest you. They awaken something primal, something symbolic. It feels like chemistry, passion, infatuation. But it's deeper than all of that. It's recognition. You're not just meeting a person. You're meeting a reflection of something you've carried within you all along. Have you ever noticed patterns in the people you're drawn to? Do they tend to possess similar qualities? Do they make you feel the same way, stir the same emotions, open the same wounds? That's not coincidence. That's your archetypal pattern at work. Some people attract us because they resemble something familiar, an emotional imprint from childhood, a story we're unconsciously trying to rewrite. Others feel magnetic because they awaken a dormant side of us, the wildness, the tenderness, the courage we've yet to fully embrace. But here's the catch. We often mistake this symbolic attraction for fate. We tell ourselves, I can't stop thinking about them because we're meant to be. When in reality, your unconscious is just screaming, look, this person has activated something important, something unresolved. It's not about destiny. It's about discovery. These people don't enter your life randomly. They are carriers of messages. Messengers of something within you that's asking to be seen, explored, and healed. And when we cling to them, long after they're gone, what we're really clinging to is what they represented. A lost part of us. A feeling we've never fully processed. A story we've yet to rewrite. So when someone stays in your mind like a ghost, haunting you with memories and what-ifs, don't ask, why can't I forget them? What part of my inner blueprint did they awaken? What archetype did they embody that I'm still trying to understand? Because when you realize they were just a symbol, a mirror for something deeper, you finally begin to reclaim your own narrative. Every deep obsession begins with a wound. Not the kind you can see, but the kind that shapes the way you love, the way you chase, and the way you hold on long after something or someone is gone. Carl Jung believed that obsession isn't caused by the person themselves, but by what that person activates in your unconscious. Think about that. When someone enters your life and triggers a deep emotional storm, you're not reacting to just them. You're reacting to an old wound they've unknowingly touched. Maybe they made you feel abandoned, or invisible, or not good enough. And maybe that's not the first time you felt that way. Somewhere in your past, often in childhood, there was a moment where something important was missing. Love, validation, safety, affection. That pain didn't go away. It just went underground. It became part of your emotional DNA. And now, all these years later, someone walks into your life and accidentally hits the exact same nerve. Suddenly, you're obsessed. Not because they were perfect or even right for you, but because they opened the door to a place you'd long buried. Obsession, at its core, is unfinished grief. It's the psyche's desperate attempt to make sense of something unresolved. You replay the moments, the memories, the messages, not because you want them back, but because you're trying to heal something through them. That's why you can't just move on. That's why logic doesn't help. Because the obsession isn't logical. It's emotional. It's archetypal. It's symbolic. The person becomes a container for all the feelings you never got to process. All the words you never got to say. All the pain you've been carrying for far too long. But here's the powerful part. What if the person who broke you was never meant to stay? What if their role wasn't to complete your story, but to awaken you to the chapters you haven't yet written? When you reframe the obsession, not as a failure, not as heartbreak, but as a message from the unconscious, you shift from suffering to meaning. You start asking deeper questions. What is this pain trying to teach me? What unresolved need is crying out for attention? What version of myself did I abandon to love them? And slowly, the obsession starts to lose its grip. Because now, instead of chasing them, you're chasing your own healing. Carl Jung believed that healing doesn't come from forgetting. It comes from integration. What does that mean? It means taking all the broken, rejected, hidden parts of yourself, the parts you once gave away, denied, or tried to suppress, and welcoming them back home. Because here's the truth. The person you can't stop thinking about, they aren't just someone who came into your life. They are someone who took a part of you with them when they left. Not because they stole it, but because you gave it away. Maybe you gave them your sense of worth, your ability to feel safe, your dreams, your voice, your identity. Integration is the process of reclaiming that. It's the realization that no one, not even the most magnetic, unforgettable person, should ever hold power over your sense of self. They were never meant to complete you, only to reflect what you forgot was already yours. So how do you begin to integrate? You start by asking, what part of myself did I project onto them? What needs did I expect them to meet for me? Where did I lose myself in the relationship, and how can I find my way back? Because you don't need another person to return to you. You need you to return to you. This is where the obsession begins to shift, where you stop looking at them and start looking within. You stop needing their presence to feel whole, because you're learning how to fill your own gaps with self-awareness, compassion, and truth. And here's what may surprise you. Sometimes, the more you reclaim, the less they haunt you. Not because you forgot them, but because you finally remembered yourself. Integration doesn't mean erasing the memory. It means understanding the role they played in your story. So you can close the chapter with grace, not confusion. Because once the lesson is claimed, the obsession releases. Not forcefully, but naturally. Like a wound that's no longer infected. Like a song that no longer makes you ache. Like a dream you're finally ready to wake from. The past stops calling because you've finally answered. Now that you understand the power of integration, let's take the final and most powerful step on this journey. The path toward becoming your whole, unshakable, and authentic self. Carl Jung called it individuation, the process of becoming whole. Not perfect, not untouchable, not healed beyond all emotion, but real, complete, aligned. It's the point where all the fragmented parts of your psyche, the wounds, the shadows, the projections, the symbols, are no longer scattered across people and memories. Because you've brought them back to their rightful place, within you. Individuation isn't about being unaffected by others. It's about no longer being defined by them. It's when you no longer ask, why did they leave? What could I have done differently? Why can't I stop thinking about them? Instead, you start asking, what did I learn about myself from this? What strengths emerged through this longing? What parts of me were waiting to be rediscovered? Individuation is the quiet, powerful return to self. The shift from obsession to ownership. The moment you realize you were never missing pieces. You were just missing awareness. And now that awareness is yours. Because the truth is, you're not here to be consumed by thoughts of someone who left. You're here to become someone who stayed with yourself. So many people live trapped in loops of longing, convinced that healing means forgetting. But forgetting isn't healing. Understanding is. When you understand what that person represented, when you face the wound they touched, when you meet your shadow with compassion, and when you reclaim what you projected, you become free, not just from them, but from every invisible string that ever pulled your mind away from your soul. That is individuation. That is awakening. That is peace. If you've made it this far, it's not by accident. It means something in this message spoke to you. Some part of you is ready to stop asking, why won't they leave my mind? And start asking, what was I meant to find within myself through this experience? Because here's the final, beautiful truth. The person you couldn't stop thinking about was never just a person. They were a message, a lesson, a mirror. And now, the mirror has done its job. You've seen yourself. Not the version that's defined by loss, confusion, or longing, but the version that's whole. That's why they're fading. Because you're rising. Not to chase anyone, but to return to the one person who always held the answer. So if this message moved you, if it cracked something open, if it made you breathe deeper or see more clearly, then don't keep it to yourself. Share it. Let someone else begin their own journey back to self. And most of all, live it. Let this be the moment you stop waiting to let go and start choosing to. Because peace was never about forgetting. It was always about remembering who you are. And now you do.